Welcome back. We have Mark Bertoli joining us from Abbott Wealth Management on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back to the show.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, we're talking all high tech today.
We are. Yeah, I'm going to go back in time, and I can remember being a young guy watching Star Trek, and they had this neat thing they flipped open and talked on, and I thought, wow, that's the future. And then they could push a button and get things out of the wall, and it was pretty neat. And then today, the rest of our banks have adopted Apple Pay. So very interestingly now, we can take this device from Star Trek and wave it over a device and get whatever we want.
Right, very much Back to the Future.
Very interesting stuff,
cool.
yeah. So I did a little bit of research about this, and really, you can use this where you would use the tap of your card, for instance. What's really neat about it is if someone took your debit card, they could randomly run around and use your tap up to $100 until you reported it stolen.
Right.
What's neat about Apple Pay is that it requires either your fingerprint at the time of the purchase or punching in your code.
So it's safer.
It is safer because no one can pick up your phone and pay for things.
Right.
You actually need to be able to verify that transaction. So I look back at it a little bit. A year ago, there was only 12% of the devices in the United States that were capable of using Apple Pay.
Okay.
It has to be an iPhone 6 or better.
Right.
Now there's 47%. So that shows you the turnover in Apple products in 1 year's time. Another thing about it, in the United States, there's 400 financial institutions that accept this now. So they've jumped on board in a big way.
Very fast.
And transactions in the U.S. have increased 5 times from what they were a year ago. Okay. So, you know, Star Trek's coming. We're, this Apple Pay is going to be a pretty major thing. One of the negatives, imagine going out for dinner and it's time to pay for dinner and your phone battery dies.
That's a big negative. That's very embarrassing.
So you have to have your wallet or your purse along just in case.
And you usually do anyways.
Yeah.
But just for the convenience of it all.
But getting it is really nothing. You go on your wallet, on your apps. I went through the whole process this morning just to see about it. And literally it says, which card would you like? And a picture frame comes up.
Yes.
You take a picture of your card, you enter your date, the PIN number on the back of your card, and then you have to go onto your online banking to verify it, and that's it.
Yes.
So there's been a little bit of resistance in Canada here with the banks, but now they're all on board. The top 5 banks are on board. I imagine that every time you do this, Apple's going to get a piece.
Sure.
Right. For the convenience of it.
Of course.
So that's, I think, some of the negatives. We as consumers ultimately in the end end up paying because retailers and the banks are not going to absorb that.
Tell me this, if you have a Samsung, do they have an equal or sort of comparable thing?
They do.
Did that come up before?
Android has come on board. And Apple's view of this is that is a good thing. That competition and building the sector through the Android, through Samsung, it just puts more pressure on retailers to offer that product, some version of it. So,
you know, the other part I don't like about the tap, if you use it, and this is sort of an aside.
Yeah.
Say you're going through a fast food place or Tim Hortons or whatever, and they say is that a tap? But you don't even see what you're paying for. Right. Should we be asking? You know, like, oh, is that $4.99 or are they making $14?
Being a good consumer, right?
I never ask, so hopefully it's all good.
Well, just lend me your card.
Yeah, right.
With Apple Pay, though, no one can do that.
Yes.
It takes your verification, your fingerprint or your code in order to enact that. So it is a little bit more secure, and the future's coming. Maybe Star Trek wasn't so far out after all.
Indeed, the latest and greatest, right?
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add today?
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about principal residence trusts. And, you know, just a gem for people who are thinking about estate planning and something to get your mind around. I think we live in a world now where just about 50% of marriages end up in divorce. And when you're doing a lot of estate planning, you run into very complex, multi-family, blended family situations. So there's actually a piece of planning that you can use where, for instance, if husband owned a home and was remarried, and of course both parties have children, if the husband passed away, he could set up a primary residence trust for the new wife. She could remain in that residence through the rest of her life, and then the residence would go back to the father's children in the event of her death. So you could live out your life, take care of your spouse, and yet the asset that was in your family would remain in your family.
Is that new?
Relatively. It's being used more and more often now. Another situation is where two people come into a marriage with blended family again, and they buy a house together. Each party could leave their asset to their children. So for instance, if my wife and I were in a blended marriage and I passed away, I could say, yes, you continue to have it, use it till your death. When you die, though, half of the house goes to my children and half of the house would go to the wife's children. So very complex planning in the future for estate stuff. But there are tools out there to make, ultimately you want to do what's fair for everyone.
Absolutely. Right? And we have to change with the times and have laws that go in according to that, right?
So financial planning goes way beyond just money, and a lot of good planning will cause harmony in the future.
Absolutely.
You would want your two blended families to remain as a family.
Exactly.
And by taking all the conflict away, it aids in that.
Absolutely. Good. All right. Great information today, Mark. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Information is on the screen, abbottwealth.com. We're back in 2 minutes. Stay with us.